My name is Vitaly. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at ZKX. Some of you might know me as Bitpactum if you are at some of the Starkware Telegram groups. And frankly, I'm in a bit of a pickle right now because exactly same place, same sport, same time yesterday, we had Ben Jones, who actually kicked off his presentation performing live tune from Titanic. I don't think anything can trump that, so I won't even try, and I can't play any musical instruments. What I'll try to do instead, I will tell you the story of how it all started, what we do, and this will be kind of an intro into our journey into the Cairo, how we've actually managed to build quite a good product using Cairo. Lots of you have asked me questions, I think it was just yesterday, how was the experience? How did we enjoy it? What are the ins and outs? I will cover it in my presentation today, so let's see how it will go. So how the ZKX story starts. I personally truly believe that there are two types of great products in general and two types of the great DeFi apps. The products and apps that are done and developed for the curiosity of exploring new technology, and we've seen examples like that where they're amazing just because there is a new emerging technology that was applied properly. Some others are done of frustration and necessity. You have a product, you have something that you really just can't stand, it really picks your brain because you really don't like it, you want to extend it, you want to make it better. So most of the time it's these two categories. However, sometimes you fall into both. You have amazing technology to work with. In our case, it's the Cairo and ZK in general. On the other hand, you really have this internal frustration of, I see these products, I have DeFi, I know how to use it, but I really have frustration, I want to make it better. And I think majority of what drives us is because of these two factors, the technology that we can use and apply, and our frustration of the existing landscape of the products. So let's first of all break down the what we do, what we build, and in general, let's talk about how it all started and the motivation and drivers for us. So when we set out to build ZKX, we wanted to break the decentralization illusion that actually massively plagued the current ecosystem. For this purpose, we identified a core set of problems we want to solve. The first one is the core DeFi projects are heavily reliant on oracles right now, and oracles and liquidity providers, centralized listing mechanisms. That's one of the things we want to solve straight away. The second was, in case of newly created token, it is difficult to create a hedging mechanism to protect from volatility and the impermanent loss. That is something we wanted to fight straight away as well. The third problem here is when you're bootstrapping depth of the market and liquidity for a new derivative, it is very challenging without proper incentive structure, and it has to bring market traders and market makers and traders together to work in conjunction here. So what do we actually build? Because if you notice, we're on slide number 5 or 6. I've never mentioned what we actually built. Maybe it's time. The ZKX is the permissionless protocol for derivatives built on Starknet with the decentralized order book and the very unique way to offer complex financial instruments as swaps. We've decided, and we knew it has to be trustless, permissionless, and borderless. And that defines the technological approach we had to apply, we had to use. And straight away, we had a number of very interesting fundamental technical challenges and technical questions. So let's talk scalability. We knew it has to be super scalable, and we were fascinated in general with the ZK technology in general. We straight away knew it is the future. And again, I will talk why for us it was Starkware and Cairo, because there is a motivation for that. But in general, the number one technical question was scalability. The second one, trustless. So we knew that it has to be self-custodial accounts with on-chain execution. We don't want to be an equivalent of a sidechain where people have to trust us. It has to be executed on-chain. It has to be single source of truth on-chain for every decision we make in a system. And the last but not least is the permissionless factor and the borderless of that. So effectively, we want to work with any type of assets without waiting on third parties, without waiting for when they can bring these assets on chain. So we had to find a way to introduce this somehow to our system. We did find the way, I'll explain it. But in general, in my core belief that if these three things are done right, then whatever is the result of this work can be truly called the next gen of DeFi. Next gen of DeFi is the kind of big and very, very loud words, but what is DeFi 3.0? My presentation says that how we built the DeFi 3.0 using Cairo. Let's talk what is, in our opinion, what is DeFi 3.0 in general. So there is always innovation happening. We're all a bunch of very smart, very intelligent people that always trying to disrupt, to create something new. In my books, the DeFi 1.0 was the era of Uniswap, of SushiSwap, Yon. Then we had the second wave of great projects. We had Olympus DAO, we had Convex. Now, me staying here saying there is DeFi 3.0. So how do we define it? Well, first of all, for us, we believe it's the future, but how we define the future? How do we see what is DeFi 3.0 is? So for us, it's three fundamental bits that have to have technical implementation and product implementation. The first and foremost, it's powered by a DAO. So a novel architecture where the DAO is placed on top of open source protocol to coordinate growth, to enabling DAOs and projects to list derivatives and derivative markets for their tokens and offer incentives for the community to trade them. So again, not centralized decision by us, but powered by DAO, truly powered by DAO. The second bit, the very important bit for us, and that's what clicked with me yesterday when I've been listening to Ed Fallon talk from the off-chain, that there is the opportunity for us to grow something next, to have the layer 3 solution embedded. For us, the DeFi 3.0 is decentralized, truly decentralized limit order book and price feeds. This is one of the biggest technical challenges as well. We'll talk about it in a second. But effectively for us, it's a unique node network that scales the derivatives exchange with the permissionless node client. The node network provides the price feeds directly to the exchanges. First of all, to improve efficiency, but also to improve time to market for new assets and new community-driven choice of assets in the permissionless way. Again, that's important. We don't want to wait for third parties to bring the assets on chain. If you ever try to work with existing data oracles, you know how it's difficult to bring a new asset to a chain and how long it takes. And obviously, we need to have the consensus algorithm that enables trust and security within the network while custody of funds fully remains with the user. So it's fully non-custodial. The layer 2 scaling is obviously has to be the foundation of everything. In our case, we talk that our trading interface is powered by Starknet, the Starkware ZKX rollup, which means that the practical implementation of that is low fees, instant settlements, fast withdrawals on the platform, support for, and obviously support for the ever-growing ecosystem of Starkware, which we'll again talk in a second. Very briefly, before we'll get into the actual Cairo aspect of the development, let's talk about our architecture and where we have this centralization, where we have data availability, where we have place for L1 and L2. So in a nutshell, this is the principal architecture of ZKX. We have layer 1 within Ethereum smart contracts just to have the wallet integration and deposit. Then all our smart contracts are Starknet Cairo smart contracts for the purpose of holding the address, the portfolio, trading smart contracts, risk management, so everything that is required to be on-chain, to be truly single source of truth whenever we do computation of the results of the trade. This all sits within the Starknet layer 2, and that's pretty much it. The rest of it sits within the ZKX node network. The ZKX node network is responsible for order book, decentralized order book, truly decentralized. I'll talk about it in a second. The query engine and the price engine. Now, how big is the Bitcoin core right now? So if you want to have a full node, how big is it? Last time when you've checked? Any guesses? We talk 250 gigabytes of the data for the network where we don't have much of the metadata stored within it. So let's imagine we come with the scenario we're saying, guys, we actually want to run decentralized network, and anyone can run the node, but actually it comes with the, 5 terabytes of data you have to run and update all the time. Is it technically possible? Of course it is. Will it be accessible to everyone and anyone? The answer is no. The answer is absolutely no. Which means that we have to come with a solution where anyone can participate in a node network, anyone can run a node without very high requirements for the nodes itself. Now we have an open system with the partial knowledge of the state. It means that every node might have, but shouldn't have the full state of the network knowledge, and every node can have only partial state of the network. That obviously comes with interesting challenges of every time when we talk decentralization, every time when we talk the proof here, we have 4 fundamentals based. Every message you have, we talk about the broadcast, the verification within the network, validation, and only then execution. So it is our approach to the data availability here. It is our approach to make sure that anyone can participate, and that's our approach to make sure that we can talk about 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 nodes, because it's beneficial for the node operator, it's beneficial for the trader, it's beneficial for the user, without too high of the requirements of the network and node running requirements. So the most logical question you might ask next is, right, okay, sounds absolutely awesome, but what we don't see is we don't see any price feeds on chain. For a reason I've explained why, but how can we make sure that if we talk prices, if we talk data feeds, they won't be compromised? That is the million-dollar question, or according to our investors, a billion-dollar question. So our approach here is as following. So for the data procurement, we have multi-layer abstraction, where ZKX node communicates with what we call a data provider service. That's a service that sits within the network. Then DPS communicates to the external data layer. It can be existing provider, it can be existing Oracle, it can be whatever has the feed. It can be any digital assets. It can be price of the crude oil in December 2022. It can be a rainfall, it can be a snow mountain in London over the Christmas. It doesn't really matter, as long as there are feeds that can connect to DPS and can connect to the price engine within the ZKX node network. Every time when there is a message that requires verification and validation, individually on each network, can be triggered, can be broadcasted, verified, and validated. It means that part that is in charge of validating the price sits within the ZKX node application itself. And this is the reason why we had to make the ZKX node itself lightweight, because we want to make sure that there will be people participating and running in the node network. So we had to have the minimal requirements for this system to work and run. What next? Next is the technical challenges. So we knew the question we had to ask ourselves. We knew what we have to have fundamentally in the products and in the platform. So we had a number of questions we had to answer before we've started development. These questions were the ZKX decentralization. It has to be decentralized, it has to be lightweight, so we have to explain ourselves how it's going to run. It has to be truly permissionless. So it's not like, well, kind of we do run there is a voting, there is a. It has to be truly, truly permissionless. You want to have a new asset, the community votes for it. There are technical means to bring this asset without 30 days delay or 60 days delay like with the normal oracles. The data availability, how we build a system where only partial knowledge of the state sits within the node without having these 50 terabytes of data on every node. And obviously one of the biggest questions for us was, we've decided that we want to go with Cairo, we've decided that we want to go with Starknet. We massively support what they do and what they offer, but we've never tried to build using Cairo before, so will it be easy, will it be difficult? So these questions had to be answered before we can go into the even kind of test net, or not even talking about the main net. These questions we had to ask ourselves at the stage when we had the proof of concept architects and developed. The actual development of POC has started last summer, was completed this February/March, February. So we've managed to answer all these questions, and let's now slightly dig into how and intrinsics of that. But the biggest one for me here, and the one that was asked most frequently yesterday is, okay, so building using Cairo on Starknet, how is it? Is it actually even doable? So we all heard about that, but tell us the real meat. It takes time. It takes time. You have Solidity, you know Solidity, you can build whatever you want within the constraints of Solidity. With Cairo, it does take time. So the Norwegians have a term for describing the feeling of cozy togetherness called kuselig. The feel of it's all nice and cozy and amazing and brilliant. So in all honesty, if you move your team from Solidity to Cairo, based on how experienced your developers are, or based on how experienced you are, and your previous, and your skills and your experience, independently of how much time you spend, it takes between 2 weeks and 2 months before you can have this kuselig inside of your team. So it does take time. It's not instant, it's not overnight, but it's achievable. And with the good engineers, with the good knowledge of Solidity, and your desire to get into Cairo, 2 weeks to start producing production codes that you wouldn't be ashamed to publish on your Git, that's respectable, I believe. But it takes time. And there is obviously a learning curve in Cairo. And there are a few things that are just kind of doesn't sit right initially. So, for example, you cannot use iteration. You can't use iteration in Cairo. You have to use recursion. And the lines of code and Solidity that make sense since we've learned BASIC or I don't know, JavaScript or whatever was it, your first language 10, 15, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, makes sense in Solidity. It transforms into this monstrosity in Cairo. But it is monstrosity only within the period of getting this building of kuselig within your team. The moment when you know how it runs, it's actually, I think it's beautiful. I'm biased though. But it is a learning curve, and sometimes it's a very steep learning curve based on your previous experience. Okay, so some things are, for the lack of better words, are unusual. So everything should be in the felt data type. And for me, personally, the introduction of string data type would be greatly appreciated. Currently, since strings are represented as felt, the storing large string is actually not possible. There is no concept of arrays. The system calls, the range checks, they're quite confusing now and then. The scoping rules are actually quite ambiguous, and it's very common to get scoping-based errors. So yeah, things are unusual. And something that's just pure annoying. The absence of Boolean expressions is just, I don't think it's great. But again, talking about your learning curve and how long it will take for you to get into Cairo, there are workarounds. They're there, they're well known, they're available. You just have to know them. Is it annoying? It is annoying. But it is all manageable. Some things are just actually frustrating. So Starknet, testnet sometimes goes down. Really sorry, guys, Starkware team, wherever you are, I'm really sorry I have to say that, but there are congestions and slowing down happens now and then. The bridge, the messaging between L1 and L2 currently could take up to 30 minutes. Again, it's very temporary, but it's there. The Starknet JS library, JavaScript library for Starknet, is absolutely amazing. The only problem that it lacks documentation. So it's trial and error of how you approach and how you use it. And sometimes it's quite difficult to understand what's going wrong in your development. The transaction time in testnet is uncertain. Sometimes it gets executed in a minute. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes. So I've seen developers crying, not understanding what's going on because it's quite a wrench. So there, few things are frustrating. Equally, few things are very, very hard to explain. So there are some instructions that are very expensive when done in Cairo. These instructions are done using built-ins, like range checks, electric curve, And the temporary results of these instructions are stored in the immutable memory. So when using these built-ins, you must pass the current points in the free memory, and it should be handled by the Cairo compiler. For the simple codes, it does. But if there are many, especially if there are conditions involved, we have to set manually points, and it's kind of, sometimes it's not handled properly by the compiler, so it gives you revoked reference error, which is difficult to explain. The Cairo language itself suggests to fix that by setting the pointer at the ends of every statement. Fair recommendation. But again, in our experience, that fix doesn't always work, and we end up doing trial and error of setting the pointer after every block and seeing if it compiles. Yeah, beautiful. The bane of my existence. Guess what that, because I don't know. So the debugging Cairo smart contracts can get complicated. The error messages we get as the part of the transaction status may not be useful for debugging sometimes. So, for example, this message that was received when we tried to do a transaction, and we get, it should be meaningful, it's not, and I personally don't even know if it's the Starknet or Starknet.js problem. So, yeah. Having said that, guess what? Starknet and Cairo are actually amazing. No, I mean, seriously, Starknet and Cairo are actually amazing, trust me on that. So the community is awesome. Considering the fact that the Starknet is pretty new, the amount of documentation, articles, messages you can find online, Discord, is pretty great. And the whole ecosystem works well and grows extremely fast. So lots of things are done because of the amazing community they have, because of developers that are performing in this community. There are standard implementation of the tokens now done by OpenZeppelin and Agent. The Agent wallet works well, and I believe it's a massive, massive future. We can use it for the transactions. The Nile is fantastic framework. The hard hat came to Starknet. So it's a good set of framework and developer tools that we have now. So it is amazing. So the account abstraction which Starknet has adopted offers many advantages and is something that Ethereum community obviously wants. There are frequent talks and workshops regarding how to develop using Cairo, Starknet, and in general its ecosystem. And these are super, super helpful. I can't over exaggerate that. Every new version of Cairo has new features that are being introduced at a very fast pace. And yeah, for us it comes with the very nice bonus that transactions are actually cheap. So what's next? What's next for us is we have thank you, we have very strong experienced team that we grow. At every stage of the new release, we have very in-depth testing, including the load testing, because we have this massive node network that runs to have the price and verification validation. We're preparing our testnet and mainnet launch, so go to our website, join our waitlist. What's next for you? So DeFi 3.0 or not, if you haven't tapped into the Starknet and Cairo yet, you have to do it now. I mean, it's personal opinion. It's about to become the biggest layer 2 solution with the biggest TVL. Yes, we are bullish on ZK rollups in general, but yeah, Starkware, we love you guys. You will find help. You'll find amazing ecosystem. You'll find like-minded developers, and on top of everything, it will be fun, and you can trust me on that. Yeah. So that's what's next. Now I have kind of very boring last slide. So it used to say we're hiring, but there is Ed, my co-founders and CEO sitting there. We've discussed it, and there is last-minute change. Guys, we're not hiring. If you're an amazing TypeScript developer, JavaScript developer, Golang developer, Solidity, Cairo, don't come to this website. It's not for you. All positions have been filled. Yeah? We're not hiring. I'm serious on that. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Probably not much time for questions. We need a technical break. It was a great presentation. I'm actually surprised you haven't mentioned non-deterministic computation. I mean, that felt like magic to me when I learned Cairo, but seems like, you just swallowed it, right? I mean,
most of the things feel like magic between these 2 weeks and 2 months, and then things get easier.
All right, thanks again.
Thank you very much, guys.